This is the Average Joe Strongman Show.
What's up, everybody? I'm Lee.
Hello.
This is my brother from another mother, Mike. And this is the Average Joe Strongman Show. So we got an absolutely awesome episode tonight. We got an icon in the sport of strongman. This guy's been around the sport longer than Mike and I combined. He's the owner of Chiropractic and Wellness in Indianapolis. He's the official chiropractic physician at the Arnold, America's Strongest Man, Giants Live, USS and Strongman Corp National Championships, and many other strongman events. He's actually going to be at my show coming up on January 8th. His website is inchiropractic.com. You can also search on YouTube Strongman Doc and check out some of his educational and inspirational videos on how he adjusts strength athletes and the things to look out for. Just a fantastic guy, a very close friend of mine, and we're excited to have him on. So without further ado, Dr. Todd McDougle, a.k.a. the Strongman Doc. And there he is.
That was pretty fancy, fellas.
Yeah, like I said, even a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
Before we start, hey, is this thing on? Can you hear me?
Shut up.
You see me?
Just shut up. Just shut up.
We've had a few technical delays.
Yeah, it's okay. Like I said. Anyway, hey, Doc, thanks for joining us. Glad to have you on here. So you've been working as a chiropractor for what, 30 plus years?
Well, believe it or not, I graduated in 1997. So this year is 24 years as a chiropractor and 23 years working on strength athletes, strongman being my focus.
Okay. Awesome. So was that when you got involved in with the sport of strongman? You said 20
Yeah. A previous guest that you had, a fellow by the name of Chad Coy, actually he had worked for chiropractors years ago, but was a real advocate for the chiropractic profession, loved what chiropractic could do for him as far as performance and things like that. But there was one caveat there that was problematic for him. And he had said that the bottom line is after he got adjusted, he actually felt sprung. And what he meant when he said that is that he had an issue with strength and power immediately after the adjustment. And so one of the things that he had asked me to do is he's like, listen, could you figure out why this is happening? And two, is there a possibility that you can circumvent it so that I can get the chiropractic adjustments and not have that weakness occur immediately afterwards? And so that's what I did.
Interesting.
Awesome.
I have a former training partner who does not believe in stretching. And listen, there's research supporting stretching, and there's research that says don't stretch, right? And he always said that, as a power lifter, as a strong, you want to be tight, right? You want to feel tightly wound. Yeah. I personally disagree, but,
Well, let me toss out there what my research, as time went on, and then the experimentation has proven. If you go ahead and you look at what was occurring back in the mid 90s, there was a huge switch from static and ballistic stretching. Okay. And what they went into was this thing called dynamic warm-ups. And everybody knows about dynamic warm-ups, right? Yep. So the question that I had, was, well, why was there a switch? Because, you guys are a little behind me, but I mean, for the most part, age-wise, when we would go ahead and warm up for school, we would actually go ahead and do our toe touches, our toe bounces, our hurdler stretches, and things like that. Well, all that stuff was pushed completely out the window. Yeah. And it just was. Nobody really talked about why. And so what I looked at when Chad said, hey, listen, why is it that I feel like I have been sprung or, completely, my rubber band is all loose now, if you will, if you want to think of it like that. I started looking around at what, was going on with chiropractic applications. Statistically, if you go and you look at it, roughly 90% of the chiropractic applications out there, the chiropractors use this thing called side posture. Okay. Which side posture is a highly effective thing, obviously so effective. The physical therapists want to do it. The athletic trainers want to do it. Massage therapists want to do it. Everybody wants to do it. Right.
Yeah.
But if you look at it really just from the pattern of motion, what you're doing is that you're doing a static lumbar roll with one leg over. Okay.
Yeah.
So you take that to tension. Taking that to tension is called a static stretch.
Yeah.
Right. Well, if you go ahead and you bend the knee and then you go ahead and you bounce it, then that's called a ballistic stretch or a bounce stretch. Not that much different than, reaching forward, doing a static stretch with a hurdler stretch, and then doing a bounce toe touch. Okay. So, just to kind of get people's heads wrapped around the stretching components. Okay.
Yep.
So this is what the setup is for the side posture application, which again, it's very, very effective. 90+% of the athletes go ahead and do it. So the reason why they changed this ties into something that was discovered in 1910 by a guy by the name of Hoffman, Dr. Hoffman. And it's not the Hoffman's baby reflex, it's another reflex. But the reflex had to do with neuromuscular recruitment following static and or ballistic stretches. Okay. And so what was found is that when you would go ahead and do a static stretch, that would create an environment in which it kind of set the threshold for activating neuromuscular recruitment components significantly. If you went ahead and you bounced it, that pretty much wiped it. I mean, messed it up so bad, if you will, for lack of a better description, that it would take even longer to go ahead and recuperate from the stretch itself. So if you go ahead and you look at what a strength athlete wants to try and achieve, they want to go ahead and try and create as much neuromuscular recruitment, as much tone, as much power and force as possible. That neuromuscular recruitment is vital to a strength athlete, right?
Yep.
So if you go ahead, according to Hoffman, if you go ahead and you do this, you're basically shooting, for lack of a better description, shooting the wad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you fizzled your opportunity to go ahead and have the maximum power achievable from a neuromuscular standpoint. If you do the static and worse yet with ballistic. Now, here's the other thing that I want you to think about. Okay. You also, when you go ahead and you put your patient in that position, and just so you know, I'm the only person in the world lecturing about this. Okay, worldwide. I've done lectures for the International Chiropractic Association. I've done lectures for the Arnolds. I've taught at, the Lee Haney events, and now I'm teaching my own technique applications, which have circumvented that reflex reaction. Okay, so what we're looking at is a long lever application that actually crosses over multiple joints, multiple muscles, and it's affecting all of those tissues, ligamentous, connective, signal, you name it, stretch receptors, everything is being disturbed when you go ahead and you do that. Okay.
Yep.
So, which is the worst thing you could do for a strength athlete in contest. So in some instances, what we found is the athlete, after having that, and, whether, our friend Chris Vaccio will tell you, or Chad Coy will tell you, or Brian Shaw will tell you, the guys all know that. And actually Alexei Novikov will be a huge, proponent of what it is I'm talking about, because, he had told me at one point when he was at WS that the guy there, the doctor that was on hand there, broke his back, is what he said.
Oh my God.
And he didn't break his back. What he did, he just shot his neurological system where his power was canceled.
Gone. Yeah.
Okay. So, but it may take anywhere from 24 to 72 hours for a strength athlete to recover from a side posture adjustment. Isn't this cool?
Yeah. No, it's amazing. It's, yeah.
So, but here's the thing, Mike, and to your point, is stretching good? Yeah, stretching is great. I think when you stretch is important. And I think also the sport that you're doing in, doing the stretching in is also important. So the requirements, for example, for a swimmer is going to be a whole lot different than somebody who's powerlifting.
Sure.
And unfortunately, within the chiropractic profession itself, the chiropractic doctors are being told in the colleges that basically everything is equal. All the adjustment protocols are equal. All the results are equal. And that's true. And I don't mean to be, I'm not saying that one's super better than the other, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
What I'm saying is that you have to have the right tool for the right patient at the right time.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a fair statement, don't you?
Well, absolutely.
Yeah, I do. And not to get too much off topic, but the last episode we talked to a guy named Mike Craig, who's up here in Chicago, and he and I both see a guy named Brian Defalco who does what's called fascial realignment. And I've had conversations with Brian about how he treats, a bodybuilder different than a powerlifter or a strongman or a football player or just some regular person off the street, right? There is no one size fits all when it comes to that stuff. So right in line with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
well, and even when, and you guys, we all know Becky Wilson, now McLean, who, I mean, she has been a great student in the game, as far as I'm concerned, in that, when she came into Strongman with me, she actually, got under my wing and I shared with her some of these components. And I, after, doing and working with, people in this sport for so long, I told her, I said, the worst thing that you can do is stretch that athlete in the middle of contest. Mm-hmm. So she's a myofascial stretch therapist. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so, her goal typically is to get into the fascial aspects, separate, opened up, But if you go and you look at what I just had shared, that's the worst thing you can do for a strength athlete. Yeah. So she was wise enough to go ahead and say, listen, teach me, tell me, show me. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you, I mean, she's the best little partner. She calls me her wonder twin because, she and I combined can do so much for the athletes. And we have, I mean, obviously, for the Arnold, OSGs, whatever,
Yeah, she saved me at 2016 Nationals down in Louisville. I was going to drop from the competition after the Conan's wheel. If you remember, that was on 4th Street Live, and the Conan's wheel that on 4th Street is kind of crowned, right? So the Conan's wheel, they had it set right in the middle of the street. So you're walking downhill on one side and uphill on the other, right?
Yep.
And I don't remember what our weight was, like 6 or 650, right? And I made like 2 laps around, and my left calf locked up. I was done. Literally limp. Jim Morris grabbed me and he helped me back to my chair. And I looked at him and was like, dude, I'm done. I'm done. And Becky saw me and came over and says, come over here. And like you said, Doc, she knew enough to what was going on with me. And she spent about 10 minutes to relax the muscle in my calf enough where I could continue competing. Mm-hmm. Right. And I was in tears because I thought, I'm going to drop. This is my first national championship. Now I have to drop. I said, I can't move my leg. Right. Yeah. And she saved.
Well, let's be honest. You cry a lot. So.
I do cry a lot, but dude, I was crying that
he's
day.
He's an '80s guy.
Yeah,
but I mean, but it goes right back to what you're saying, right? But she knew just exactly what to do to get me back in the game, and it ended up taking second. So, but had it not been for her, I'd have been done. I'd had to drop the last 2 events and been done, right? It's just the importance of what you guys do for the sport is it's unparalleled.
In keeping with the notion that you've been in this now for a couple decades, what is it, Doc, that you like most about the sport, that you love about the sport?
You guys, that's easy.
Yeah, that was easy.
That's easy.
Podcast over. We can start now. Yep, we're done. Good night, people.
Party over.
Yeah.
Party.
Elaborate, please. I mean,
listen, I tell you, for me, it has always been the athletes, and getting to know people, getting to understand where they're coming from. Not everybody's having a good day at contest. I remember Phil Pfister, having and this was 2000, I think it was, when he and I first met, and this was before he won World's Strongest Man in 2006.
Yeah.
But he had a rib issue that was going on, and he told me, he's like, nah, it's not a rib, it's something else. And even then, I'm the new guy at that point in time.
Yeah.
I've only been at it a couple of years,
Yeah.
in practice, and then also, working with strength athletes, and, me not really knowing who anybody really was, because, a lot of World's Strongest Man championships and competitions, IFSA, International Federation of Strength Athletes out of Canada, those were guys that I worked on, but I never saw them on TV. So I didn't know, what they were doing and how big a deal they were. But I did tell Phil to shut up, and if he didn't agree with me, he could adjust his damn self.
No.
But, and how much of a hothead he could be back in the day. Right. So, but he did pull back, come up later, and he's like, dude, he says, I'm sorry, I just wound up. He said, let's see if we can get this figured out. And we did, but
That's awesome.
It's stuff like that, though, that I think you learn, and you learn to ebb and flow with you athletes. But I would venture to say some of the biggest joy I've had is to see the women's side of strongman flourish.
Yeah.
And flourish in a big way.
Yeah.
Especially, I would venture to say, over the last 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah, agreed.
And so, seeing the joy on the faces of people like Leafa Engels, or, working with, Kristen Rhodes, but also at the same time, I got to know, Jill Mills very well, and spent a lot of time with her, and it's just neat to see that. And then, of course, as time has gone on, I've been able to become friends with Jan Todd, for example, who was, our world's first strongest woman.
Sure.
And one of the first women, if not the very first, to lift the Denny Stones.
Yeah.
So it's been so cool, from a historical, component, and, even, meeting Terry Todd and not fully understanding how pivotal he was in strength sports and the development of strength sports. And Rogue actually did a really great video that featured he and
that was fantastic. Yeah, they did a really good job with that.
I don't know if you create a link or something like that, but
I'll do that
would
sure.
be
That's
something
awesome.
that everyone really, really needs to watch.
Well, it's interesting, because there's a common theme. Anybody who's watched all the episodes of this podcast will know this, but like, we ask people, what do you like most about the sport? And I think almost every single person has said, it's the people, it's the camaraderie, the brotherhood, the sisterhood, right? It's the athletes and the community that make it so special and so fun, for all of us, because it's different.
And it's huge. People don't realize how far reaching this is. I did my first international contest with Big Daddy Glenn Ross over in Ireland. That's when Chad Coy and I actually had gone over there. And that was kind of on a whim, believe it or not. We did basically a 3-day red eye both directions with Ode Haugen. And, got over there, first time meeting Big Daddy Glenn Ross, which was great. First time I'd ever seen Eddie Hall in the flesh. Adjusted several people, which, is pretty cool. But they actually had Nick Aldis and then also Matt Bell, who were the commentators for that event. Well, Matt Bell owns Wolf Shoulder Films. Wolf Shoulder Films is the one who actually did the video Eddie Strongman.
Yeah.
Right? So I got to do videos with those guys when I was in Ireland. When Eddie was over here in the U.S., 2015, I think it was, at the Arnolds, they were doing, basically shadowing him and did the video. Well, at the very end of the video, guess who you're going to see hanging out with Eddie Hall in the movie?
I saw it. I was like, there's the man right there.
And I was on the big screen, too, because they did the film, I don't know, what do you call it, the big hoopla,
Right.
But they did that, and it's like Dr. Todd on the big screen.
Yes, I saw that.
Way,
Nice.
Right? So now there is a movie series on Prime Video called The Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
And Matt Bell actually has done a ton of work in that series.
Awesome.
So, like I said, you see how this just spreads all over the place, and you should have heard the first time I adjust Eddie Hall. he's like, hey, hey, Mike, you think you give me adjustment? I go, yeah, of course. And so I went ahead, and it's loud and noisy, and people are screaming, and you got it's behind the Arnold stage, and you got all this noise. And so I go ahead and I get in there and I go, okay, buddy, this hip needs to go. And he's like, okay. And I went ahead and I moved that pelvis, and that sucker exploded. Boom. And he goes, "Ow, mother," and I go, "You all right, Eddie?" He goes, "Yeah." He said, "I thought you were going to put your arm in my ass." And he said, "I don't know what that was. Felt better now."
Yeah.
Welcome
and
to
by
the
way,
SmackDown.
this is not a kid show. You can swear. We can say fuck,
That's
shit,
right.
motherfucker.
Welcome to the SmackDown. Awesome.
Well, I didn't know how far we were going to go one way or another, but I figured, but that was my first real experience with Eddie. We've been friends ever since.
That's funny.
That's awesome.
But we got stories like that all over the place. Woody, you were talking, earlier about, one of the first times we had actually worked together.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that the other day. Mike and I were actually talking about it. It was a John Albrecht show in Indianapolis, and it was probably maybe the second or third time I'd actually been around you and met you. And John Albrecht, in his infinite wisdom, decided to do a progressive car deadlift, and he got a local dealership that ended up giving him some brand new Cadillac all-wheel drive sedans that weighed about 700 pounds with the handles empty. And I pulled the first rep and sat it back down. They dropped 50 pounds more on there, and I went to pull the second rep, and my right strap broke and just jarred me sideways. And I knew right then I knew my back was screwed. I could feel it go out. And Vaccio Sander throws me his strap. I roll back up, try to pull the second rep. Like, this is an exercise in futility. I'm going nowhere. My back is screwed. And when time finally ran out, I looked up and I could see Doc, and he's looking at me. He was working on somebody. He stopped. He's looking at me, and time runs out, and I stand up. I look at Doc, and I just see him go like this. Right? So I hobble over there, and there was 2 or 3 people in line yet to go. He's like, "Guys, hold on. I got a guy that's injured here. I need to work on him." Threw me on the table, adjusted me, got my back in shape. Doc slaps me on the ass, and he says, "Go get him, Tiger." And I went and I finished the rest of the competition, right? So that was one of many times that Doc has bailed me out of an injury perspective. So
what's funny? The first time we met, I did this.
Yeah, imagine that. And now we do it all the time, right?
Yeah.
You number one.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
So, Doc,
but you know what, though? It's great because, it's things like that. The events, the injuries, all these things keep coming. We had the experience with Shannon Clifford. I don't know if you saw the video at OSGs or not, but her boyfriend, who was England's strongest man, he actually literally carried her off the field of competition and laid her on my table twice.
Yeah.
And says, "Fix her, do something." Yeah. And, she came in with a lot of stuff. A lot of you athletes come in. You and Mike come in all beat up, and you're train wrecks. You train, with broken, bent pieces of body parts.
Keeps you on your game, Doc.
Yeah, I know, right? And I'm like, what the heck? It's like,
why are we doing this?
Yeah, why are we doing this?
Most good fishermen would just cut the fishing line and not waste their time unknotting you, right?
That's right.
I unknot you guys, right?
That's right.
So, but anyway, Shannon was one of those, and she had been training, and she was broken, and she, shared some of her story there, and so I had to come up with some weird stuff. I had to do the same thing with Sam Bellevue, Bellevue, and at the Shaw Classic, a variation. But after she had an injury, way back in April, and that's a whole nother story. But I got lots, right? But anyway, Shannon went ahead and figured out and helped her up off the table. And then she go out and do a stellar performance, which, that just shows her level of intensity and intent, right? Intestinal fortitude. Well, then she bust herself up again. And so her boyfriend literally scooped her up. And I don't know if you saw it on the video, but he's carrying her back over the table again. Wow. It's like, I look at her and go, "I think she wants already, girl." And so anyway, so we go ahead and we I tap her up, get her set back ready to go. And I go, "You know what? This wasn't as bad as the last time." So I said, go get him, Tiger.
Yeah.
Do you know she won the title?
Yeah.
Huh.
And the number 2 title holder is a girl which I would venture to say is pound for pound likely the strongest woman in the world, if not strongest woman maybe ever, and that's Rhiannon Lovelace.
Oh yeah,
out of England.
She's an animal.
She's a monster, and she's just the sweetest soul.
Yeah.
She may have a mean streak, but what girl doesn't? But no, she first adjustment, she just was so tearful and so appreciative. And I mean, that's the people. That's what I'm talking about. What we were talking about, it's the people. It's that kind of thing.
Yep.
And when they come at you, with that kind of love after you have altered their trajectory, it's amazing. And I shared with Lee, a soundbite that she had sent me unexpectedly earlier this week.
Awesome.
Was just it about put tears in my eyes because you can hear the emotion in her voice, and the fact right now she's training pain-free over in the UK. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, training pain-free, and she thought she was going to end up having to have surgery. That's how bad she was.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's a pretty significant change, Doc. I mean, that's amazing.
And unfortunately, I mean, in my industry, almost everybody comes to me as a last resort.
Yeah.
They've been typically everywhere else.
Yeah.
Just in my standard of practice. And I have tales to tell. My poor wife, she hears about these tales, and then at the end of it, it's like, and walked out of the office pain-free again.
It's awesome.
Wait, speaking of tales to tell, let's take a quick timeout, 2-minute break, talk about some upcoming shows, including I think Lee's on January 8th.
Yep.
You'll also see a slide that I'm having Windy City or Warpath Strength, Windy City Strongest Man and Woman in May. So some other shows coming up. So stay tuned. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
All right, we'll be back. 2 minutes. Stand by. And we're back.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was watching all the graphics again. You guys are
yeah. Yeah, it's a little mesmerizing.
Least fancy.
My fancy stuff, yeah. Hey, Doc, so early on, you competed originally in Strongman, right? You did Strongman training, competed in the early days, right?
Would you believe that my first contest was in 1999?
Wow.
And Chad Coy was my trainer. And a lot of people don't know this, but back in 1988, I was nearly killed in an industrial accident and nearly lost my arm in the process.
Holy cow.
So I'm missing half my bicep. My brachialis is completely missing. They shaved off some tricep, and I'm missing both of my lat muscles in my back.
Huh.
And yet, even with that, eventually
Chad
had me beefed up to 265 pounds, missing all those body parts.
Damn.
I was able to do 500-pound deadlift for 20 reps.
Wow.
I had a seated military in the 260s. I was back up to almost 400-pound bench press again, missing half my body parts. Remember that?
Yeah.
My squat, he had me squatting. I would do 3/4 squats with over 700 pounds. And I would put in, you see people on leg presses, and I know leg presses don't count. I'm sorry, leg presses count. Okay, they count. Dang it.
Well, I mean, they don't, but
yeah. Well, they did to me, and when I'm doing during my workout, 20 500-pound deads, 1,000-pound hack squats for 20, and then I go ahead and I do 20 2,000-pound leg presses. Dude, that counts, and that was one workout.
No joke. Yep.
All right. Yep. So yeah, call me names, but
I call you names.
So I can hide behind that. Okay.
That's right.
But be that as it may, in 1999, I finished middle of the pack, and one of the guys I actually competed in bodybuilding against, also, that I think was from Chicago, and he told me afterwards, he's like, you beat me with missing body parts in bodybuilding, and now you have just crushed me in strongman as a handicapped or disabled athlete.
Right.
Because I'm just going to quit all strength sports because you're out doing it.
I'm done. I quit.
But, I was like one of the very first disabled athletes to compete in the U.S.
That's awesome.
And people don't have any idea that I have any handicap at all, which I think is the best compliment.
Yeah, that's great.
That's great.
With all the years of experience, what would you say is the most common injury, or maybe what are a couple of the most common injuries you see among strongman athletes? Are there any? Like, is there?
Depends on the event. Depends on the event. I mean, if you go and you look at 2013 when we were out in Reno, there was a very, very heavy frame lift for reps. And I'm going to tell you what, we saw a ton of people that honestly, I don't know how they didn't break their collarbones. AC joints were screaming. Bicep tendons were just mad as hell. Had one girl that came over who actually had a cage in her back, meaning rods and screws from a previous injury from falling out a window.
Wow.
She came over to me and she was so locked up that she couldn't breathe. So I had to unwind her rib cage.
Yep.
And I saw a similar event like that when Seamus McNally, when we were in Louisiana, Shreveport. And that's the first time I met Dimitar Savatinov, by the way.
Yeah.
But he had dropped an axle, full load axle, and literally slid his rib cage into this weird position that thank God I was there and understood this, because that boy would have been in the hospital and there would have been nothing anybody could have figured out to fix him.
Yeah.
So, okay. So there's two completely different injuries, one rib cage, one, with the, obviously the shoulders, but, blown off patellas, people doing split jerks and almost, having the weight land behind them on their ankle, which first time I saw, Andrew Clayton do a split jerk at one of the America's Strongest Man events.
Yeah.
I thought he dropped it on his ankle, and I wanted to throw up. I thought, I thought he'd done messed. I don't know how he missed that ankle.
Yeah.
But it was horrible. But it really depends on the event.
Yeah.
But,
I was just curious if there was a one you see a lot more of than others.
No, it's interesting perspective though. Yeah, it really, I guess it would be really dependent on the events of what's going on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just like you were talking about, Lee, with the, doing the Conan's wheel. And, there's a lot of promoters. I think the promoters are probably better than they used to be, but, a lot of the promoters don't look at the parking lot and make sure it's level.
Yeah.
For events. I mean, I've seen people do, 800-pound yoke walks on uneven surfaces. And
right.
I'm like, no. I mean, who thought of that?
Part of that though is, hey, it's strongman, and you got to be ready for anything. And if that's the conditions that we're dealing with, that's what we're dealing with.
I get that, Mike. I really do. But at the same time, I mean, setting an athlete up for injury is
fair enough.
Yeah. Sure. You get a promoter that, I mean, listen, it's just like me being at an event. I should be at all the events.
Agreed.
Somebody trained by me should have been at all the events.
100% agreed. Yeah.
And I say trained by me. The caveat is you need to make sure that you have somebody that's capable. And there are people out there that should not be touching your athletes.
Yeah.
That are touching your athletes.
Yeah.
So just as not all promoters should be promoters.
That's
just
for sure.
Because you got a doctor in front of your name or letters behind your name doesn't mean you should be there either.
That's right.
So Lee knows all about good touching and bad touching.
That's right. Show me on the doll where it hurts you, right? Yep.
Yeah, right. So, but no, I think, Mike, I think it's a great thing that you bring up, because I mean these are conversations that even though sometimes it's uncomfortable, we got to talk about this stuff because to me the reason why I'm still in this game is because of the athletes. I'm here to make sure the athletes are number one, making sure they're getting taken care of the best way.
We appreciate that. Yeah,
I mean, but that's why I love the sport. I love you guys.
Yeah.
I don't want to see the promoters get nailed. I don't want to see any of the organizations get nailed, and I don't want to see them get nailed because somebody goofed up, something somewhere, somehow that ends in a severe injury for the athlete.
Yeah.
So
we're all part of the same team, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, so let's spin that, and this is, I know we're running long, but I'll make this my last question. So taking that to the next step, then, from your perspective, Doc, I mean, what can the athletes do to prevent, or at least help prevent, some of these injuries that you see that are more common that come to your table?
Well, as Mike said, a lot of it is strongman, right? And, years ago, strongman was done in bars, back in the old days.
Yeah.
So you never really knew if you were going to pick up, the fat bearded lady at any point,
Right.
Right.
You just didn't know. So I think, keeping it fresh in lieu of that history is great. So it's really hard to prepare, I think.
Yeah.
Now, compared to the old yoke walks where they basically were a pendulum that you slid on a 45-pound bar and then, put 800 pounds on that and then watched your spine weave in and out, as you're walking down, the uneven pathway of the event, whatever, like we did in the back alley challenges all those years ago. But, there are standardized things that people can train for. I think, slow and steady is the best way to approach anything.
Right.
The problem is competition day.
Sure.
You don't have slow and steady.
What's that saying with shooting? It's smooth as fast, fast as smooth, or something like that.
Yeah, it's slow is smooth, and smooth is fast.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you just have to be sure-footed. I think that's one thing, and making sure that especially the young strong men, they need, and strong women, they need the support of the elders. And unfortunately what I'm finding is that rather than go to you guys, you, Lee, and you, Mike, for advice and information, they go to somebody that just accidentally won a national championship.
Yeah.
And those guys are now training the 20-somethings.
Yeah.
And they don't understand. I mean, they may be bringing things back like the stretching before an event. I remember Tony Scrivens, with his, ouchy knees. Do you guys remember Tony from way back?
No.
Tony Scrivens was pro strongman, big dude, big dude, strong dude. But back then he was a chef, I believe. You have to ask Chad Coy. Chad Coy was good friends with him.
Yeah.
But anyway, Tony died a few years ago. He'd come around the cones when we were doing the farmer's walk, for example. And, he was like, Doc, he goes, my knees are killing me. He goes, what can we do? What can we do to change this? And I said, throw your shoes away. And he goes, what?
Yeah.
He was wearing, back then, cross trainers were big.
Right.
In the early 90s, right? And every time he took a step, and he was a 300-pound man, 300-plus pound man, carrying 300 pounds in each hand.
Yeah.
What do you think those tennis shoes look like? They look like he was walking on marshmallows.
Yeah.
Right.
Every step. And I'm watching him horrified. I'm like, holy smokes, what's going to happen? So when he came over and said, what do I do? Boom. I had the answer.
Yeah.
Back then, they didn't have, a lot of the different kinds of shoes like they do
flatter
now.
shoes.
I remember Chad Coy, wearing which looked like a set of leather patent shoes. And that's what he did a lot of his lifts in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they were fancy dress shoes.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, they got
this is stuff the young people, if you want to call it, sounding like an old guy, the young people don't know about this stuff, right?
That's right.
So when to use it, when not to use it, that's the stuff that you guys have knowledge on that is invaluable, that the young athlete needs to reach out for, not the brand new Instagram champs.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, I always talk about, like, when I'm doing a moving event, yoke, farmers, I wear tactical boots with a real flat sole. It's got good support, keep the ankle supported, but, it's a lot more comfortable. And I feel like I can go faster with those than any kind of a cushion, like running or athletic training shoe.
Yeah, it's funny. You see a lot of these guys, and I noticed at the last competition I did in August, there was a couple guys that were vets, and they run in their jump boots, right? Their jungle boots, right? Real flat profile boot, ankle support, and just haul, right? It's just unbelievable.
And that's pretty much material stuff, right? But me as a chiropractic doctor who works off the neurobiomechanical, people need, especially the young athletes, they need to invest in assessments. They need to invest in trying to find out where their deficits are by somebody who has the skill sets to tell them what's going on and the predictability of injury based upon what they're doing.
Yeah.
And if they so choose to do it, fine. But that requires a set of x-rays. I don't care what anybody says. If you want to argue about that, take a damn set of x-rays. If your chiropractor doesn't know how to read them, get a new chiropractor. And unfortunately, what's happening is that we're having less and less of these doctors with the skill sets as they come out of school to interpret films neurobiomechanically. And when I do it after people have been to 10 different chiropractic colleagues, the patients are freaking amazed. How did you know all of this? I didn't write this down. I didn't tell you.
Yeah.
Listen, this is a niche. I got a niche going on right here.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
But be that as it may, spend the money, find out for sure what you're dealing with, and prepare and train around the deficits with skilled veteran lifters like yourself.
Yeah.
Because you guys now are and have for a while learned how to train around things.
Sure.
Yeah.
And if you know one of your athletes already has scoliosis, you're going to be saying, okay, which side is it?
Right.
Which is your high side? Where should you put the yoke? You should put the yoke probably a little lower or a little higher based around where your curvature is.
Yeah.
If you're doing a split jerk with scoliosis, which leg do you pop forward or pop back? Should that be a concern? Yeah.
Sure.
It should be. So there's a lot of information. So I think that's probably for me, from my standpoint as a clinician, find out what's happening.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of, go ahead, Lee.
No, and I apologize. We're running along, Doc. We're going to hit you one more question. We're going to hit you with one more question here. So just to kind of finish this up, and God knows we could go on for hours and hours. That just means we got to have you back. But I got one more question I'm dying to ask you. So, and we've had this question come up from a couple different people. So how does your approach to treating a patient differ from a strongman competitor to somebody off the street that's not a strength athlete? I mean, there's got to be a pretty significant difference, right?
You would think so. I'll be honest with you. The people that don't train, the people that don't exercise, the general public at large are more, I probably would say, a nightmare than the strength athletes quite often. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say that is because of the repetitive, static, movements that they have.
Movement patterns, yeah, because compensations develop over time, over years, that you're trying to undo or unlock, right?
And muscles shorten and harden. And, if you have a kid with cerebral palsy, for example, those muscles basically turn into sinew because they're not being activated anymore, right? Mm-hmm. So basically it's a rubber band is looser than a lot of these kids in the muscle, based upon, the neurological information getting in there, whatever. But, they already show that if you have forward head carriage, that overloads the frontal cortex of your brain, causing all your flexors to fire hard. Well, now you've got your biceps in hypertonic, you've got your your psoas hypertonic, you've got all these things hypertonic. And so that in itself is very problematic. At least the lifters these days will go ahead and try and do some other things to counter that.
Yeah.
A lot of other people, especially, sitting at home in front of their laptops, they don't do that so much anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Lee lied. We're going to ask one more question. And I was going to ask.
That makes sense, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
It absolutely did. Yes. Before he asked his question, you were kind of going on this path. I wanted to ask you, in terms of finding a qualified, chiropractor to do an assessment, as you spoke of. How do you find a reputable chiropractor, or how would you recommend, a strength athlete, strongman, powerlifter go about finding someone in their area who is good enough, qualified enough to know how to deal with and treat, again, someone like us who does the crazy shit that we do, lifting ridiculous weight and moving odd objects?
I think, Mike, as with anything, let's just put it this way. You wouldn't probably go to the brain surgeon that has a coupon on Instagram.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
So
that's
that's one aspect. Avoid that guy or gal. The other one is I would probably avoid the guy or gal that has the YouTube channel adjusting naked people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you never know, though. Depends on what your jam is, right? I mean,
I think you got to be careful about that.
I like to be naked. Jam. I'm not gonna lie to you. I like to be naked.
I know. Some people are comfortable. I'm not. The more clothes my patient has on, the more comfortable I am.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
awesome.
But no, I think that's the buyer needs to be aware.
Yeah.
Not everybody is the top brain surgeon in their class.
Right.
So really, reputation is everything.
Sure.
What you may find is the guy or gal that you find that is a rock star as a chiropractor is not even on YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am, because I'm trying to make an impact on my profession. I'm trying to make a footprint in the sport of strongman so that I can do what my end game is, and that is to teach other chiropractors how to be chiropractors.
Yeah.
Not just average, but excellent clinicians.
Yeah. That's great.
Yep.
And so what I am, and Lee and I talked about this, the other night, But my hope is develop a website that you guys can go to as promoters, as patients, as athletes, people that I've trained in the safest way to be a clinician, at least on the road as a strongman doc. And you don't end up having somebody in a rodeo where there's horse feces everywhere, dry needling you, which is the most insane thing I've ever heard. But you ever heard of this thing called tetanus? You step on a nail?
Yeah. Sure.
So what's the difference? There isn't any. All right. So, and I'm not pointing in any names.
Sure.
I'm just using it as an example. Okay. But I think that's probably my solution in the future. And next year, 2022, we're gonna have some very interesting things. I don't know if you guys know who Lee Haney is. Lee. I'm going to be doing some work with Lee Haney and Pete Gritali, who were in workouts with Lee Haney on ESPN in the 90s. Be working with those guys and helping promote some really cool events there. I know Lee eventually would like to have at least one of the Strongman organizations, participating. Chris Faccio and I have actually talked about the possibility of doing the disability program in Georgia at the Lee Haney event, possibly. Which, obviously an international invite is possible. But, things like that. Also working with the International Chiropractors Association to go ahead and try and do some cool things with them to go ahead and, again, work with the sports program to create an environment that, again, it's a safe space for athletes. So we may be able to go ahead and have you guys access that, in the future. And then I'm also hoping, with that website to partner with an association, organization, a strongman organization. I've tried talking to both. We're going to see what happens. Sure. But if I can do the certification program through one of the strongman organizations, that will kind of seal the deal for any of you guys who are promoters. Or anybody else who wants to tie in with strongman. So, we talk about, two ends of the coin here. The one is where we are now and what can we do now? And that is search out by reputation, find the best quality guy or gal you can. The other side is where I'm trying to go ahead and carry this into the next generations of the sport of strongman in a safe, productive way for you guys.
That's cool.
As athletes. So
that's awesome.
So that, unfortunately, you're not going to know until you're there in the office, and often you've spent $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, in treatments. But
naked behind the camera,
naked behind the camera, right?
Yeah,
in front of the camera. So
it's crazy stuff. I mean, so buyer beware. I mean, there are talented doctors out there.
Sure.
And I hear this, I've been asked to go ahead and speak at the Swiss up in Canada, Dr. Ken Kanakin. And so that's one thing I want to do. And I can't wait to be on stage with Stuart McGill. And,
cool.
And of course, people like Bill Kazmaier, our friend Bill Kazmaier. And the like. Awesome. But I got goals, but it's always for the betterment of everybody involved.
Exciting stuff. We are way over time. We could do this for another hour, but we gotta sign off here.
After party.
After party for sure.
Really, really appreciate your time, though. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us tonight.
Yeah, Doc.
I really enjoyed. Love both you guys. It's awesome.
Yep, love you too, man. Hey, and on behalf of all the strongman competitors that you have worked on over the years, we want to thank you sincerely for all the time and effort that you put out to keeping us safe and keeping us healthy. So thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
And we'll get you back on soon enough. We got to get you back on sooner than later. So, but thanks for joining us, Doc, and we'll see you soon.
Love you guys.
Yeah, love you too, man. Take care.